Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where in the world you are joining from. My name is Faith Abiodun, and I am excited to welcome you to this edition of the Future Africa Forum with Fatima Al Ansar as our speaker today. We're super excited that you have chosen to join us, and we are very, very keen on having your full participation in the conversation today. Our discussion today focuses on peace building, particularly through the lens of Fatima's journey and her work in and outside of the public sector. And we're very, very keen to have you engage on the conversation and ask questions shortly. I will kick off by introducing Future Africa shortly, and then we'll bring in Fatima for the conversation. A little over 5.5 years ago, we began to work on Future Africa after identifying that several young people across the continent are eager to understand the roles that they have to play in shaping the future of the continent. But in those conversations, many of us shy away from the public sector as a space where we think we can create change. We don't always think about governments positively, building on our own experiences, of course, and our perceptions about how the public sector functions. And so Future Africa was founded to ensure that young people all across Africa have a pathway into understanding the public sector and defining their own roles in shaping the sector. We've defined a three-stage approach to our model. First of all, we create space for people to explore the issues of development across the continent. We often say that you cannot change what you do not understand. Therefore, it is important for us to help you understand how the public sector operates so that you can then define your own pathway into creating change. Our second stage is then to create space for you to innovate. We believe that the more you understand what is broken in the public sector, the more you can be switched on to identifying how you can help to create change through the same sector. And then once you've been able to define how you want to create change, we want to then make the space for you to actually be able to create that change. And so we want to have space for people to engage with the public sector in defining their own approaches in creating change in Africa. Therefore, through exploring, innovating, and engaging, we believe that we can make a huge difference in the public sector in Africa today. We have 3 programs that are currently running in Future Africa. We've got the Future Africa Fellowship, from which we've got some participants today. This is a program for young people between the ages of 21 to 30 years old all across Africa. And our current cohort of the fellows who are into the 8th month now, it's an 8-month program, and we're into the final month of the fellowship this year. We've got fellows from 10 African countries. And last month, we kicked off the Future Africa Ambassadors that currently has 65 ambassadors from 23 African countries. So we've got quite exciting programs, and all of those are happening simultaneously. So as we're having the conversation, the ambassadors are equally right now into week 5 of their 12-week program. And then we've got the Future Africa Forum, which is a space for us to bring in current and past public sector leaders to share about their leadership journeys and about the lessons that they have learned to help us understand how that space functions. And so that's by way of introduction. It is now my pleasure to introduce Fatima Al Ansar, who's going to be our speaker today. And everyone would have had a chance to read Fatima's bio through the invitation that we sent. So I will not rehash the entire bio. I will start by saying, Fatima, it's a pleasure to have you joining us today. We're excited that you've been able to commit the time. I remember when we first met in 2012, you were at the end of your journey at African Leadership Academy, but that was not the beginning of your leadership journey. You had actually been involved in leadership for a long time. So that's how we're going to kick off the conversation today. I want to start by digging a little bit into your leadership journey, and then we'll get to talk about the subject of your work in the public sector through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in Mali. And then we're going to speak about your thoughts about public sector leadership itself. So why don't we get into the conversation, Fatima? Thanks so much for making the time today. How are you, by the way? It's a pleasure to see you.
Great, thank you so much. It's so good to see you. It's been a long time. I think since 2012 we haven't really seen each other again, and I do
Correct.
remember you very well. Thank
Correct.
you so much.
Correct.
You see, they say that you never graduate from ALA, you know. Even like 10 years later, we're still like very active and for a common goal and objective, which is to really bring change in Africa. So I'm very, very impressed by all the great work you have been doing, and congratulations on everything. And I think with people like you, we can really keep the hope that soon Africa will bring the change that we need for the continent. So
Absolutely.
I'm very happy to be speaking for the first time at the Future Africa Forum, and I think I really like the concept itself because I feel like my journey, even exploring the public sector, and then find my own path after that kind of explain and supports the kind of work you do. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself. You were right. My leadership journey haven't started. Have started very, very long time ago, since I was very, very young. I am originally from northern Mali, Timbuktu. I'm mixed with Tuareg, Peul, and Songwe, but I was born in Timbuktu, northern Mali. Unfortunately, I was born when there was a lot of like conflicts in the northern region of Mali, and I actually grown up in a very conflict area. And since I was young, growing up, I knew that if I stayed in the northern Mali area, in the Timbuktu area, I knew that I wouldn't have access to education. Having access to education for a young girl like me was like kind of like an utopic dream for a lot of reasons, for like an economical reason, for a cultural and social reason, and also how like just the mindset of like how women are raised to be. You know, we are raised to be a future wife, not like to be going to school and learn. But I was a rebel from a young age. I remember I used to be very like upset. I used to ask my grandma, why is like only young boys are allowed to go play soccer and I cannot play with them? So I used to like dress up actually to get out of the house. I would like dress up like a boy and then wear the hats so that my grandma doesn't know that I'm going to play with the boys. So I would do that and come. And then when she find out, she was very mad at me, you know. So since then, I started like to notice around me like those social justice, like the equality, like on the treatment. Unfortunately, but luckily enough, the war really started to get worse in the northern Mali region. And then my father also was like a very open-minded man. So he joined the army because he knew that he wanted us to have access to education, but he knew that if he stayed there, we can't. Even like we went to the refugee camp in Mauritania, but still it wasn't safe to have access to a safe education. So my dad joined the army, and we moved to the southern area of Mali in Bamako Kati. And then I was able to have access to education. So, but I was very like, there was something inside me that was like missing and hurting me. That is the fact that I feel like I'm privileged to have access to education. But what about like those cousins and and then those friends of mine that I have left in those areas without having access to education? So I I decided to, me and my sister, we decided to go back every summer. We were very young, age 8, 7. We will go teach to the young kids in the northern region what we have learned at school. And I was very excited to see like the excitement in those young children's eyes when I was teaching them how to read and write, even though me myself, I wasn't like the best at it because I just learned that. But I knew from there that I wanted to bring school at home. I wanted to bring school home, and that was like my my motivation to really work hard at school. My motivation to be very involved at a very young age at the orphan. I used to go teach at orphans by my house. I also joined the children parliament. I was the president of children parliaments in Mali, where we would like meet with the stakeholders, fight for children's rights to like healthcare, children's rights to safe education. So I was very, I was fighting at a very young age until I heard about the African Leadership Academy. I remember, and that was because also I was somebody who was very engaged. I always like to talk to elders, to learn from them, hear what they think about, like what's going on in my country, give my view. And then I have met this man who came to one of our events, and I talked to him. And then he was like, "Wow, I'm very impressed by your age. That you have such a open view, and then you have a very special view on like what's the how things are going in Mali. And I think African Leadership Academy would be a great fit for you. I think you should apply." I was like, "Okay, no problem." And then he sent me the link, and then I applied. We were 100 actually who applied in Mali, and I was the only one who was selected to join the African Leadership Academy. And that was like a beginning of another new challenge. My motivation still was like, I'm going to this school, but I really want to bring change to my hometown. I really want to bring education home. So I went there, but unfortunately there was a lot of challenges because I couldn't speak English at all. Like I went there, I didn't even know how to like greet well. The only thing I know, hello, I'm fine, and you. That's the only that's the only thing I knew. So I was struggling a lot. I remember I used to cry almost every night. I used to get a lot of D's, bad grades. And I was like, I was the best student in my country. What happened to me? Like, I started doubting myself a lot. But I think with my help of like great teacher like Faith, Mr. Faith, and a lot of other great teachers at ALA, they have really helped me to get my self-confidence, to really learn English slowly, and then really start to get back to like my objective, which is to bring back school home. And I was lucky enough that there was like a Michelle Obama Fellowship that was launched by Obama, because Obama have launched in 2010 the Young African Leadership Fellowship for like young African leaders. And then Michelle Obama also have launched the Young Women Fellowship for only African women. So I was selected. Actually, me and another A-lister were the youngest one. And I think we were like 18, but the age range was like 25 to 35. So we were like the exception in the group. And then being at ALA and then being part of this group, because at ALA, they will tell you that you don't have to be older to bring change in your community. Age is just a number, but what matters is like you having a vision, having objective, and having a support system. So I was very impressed by learning story of like young women, young students of my age, the kind of achievement they have done in their community at a very young age. So I thought that I wasn't crazy, of having this big dream of bringing school back home, because people have done it in other African countries that I'm like student with. They have bring wheels, water into their communities. They have built schools before. Why not me? So I was very motivated. So I got a mentor at the Young African Women program, and then she has like a same like kind of passion about education, just like me. So what happened is like, I was like, okay, this is my first summer after ALA. I'm going back home. I'm gonna meet with can you hear me? I think it was scratching. So I'm gonna meet with stakeholders and I'm gonna share my dreams. So I went back and I took appointment with the Minister of Education. Since when I was in the Children Parliament, I have a very good network. So I went back and I met with the Minister of Education. I was like, you know what? I want to bring school. I want to bring school to my community, and I want you to help me, and I want you to give me a land, authorize me a land, and give me all the paperwork, and I really need your support. And he was like, oh, okay, that's so ambitious. How old are you? I was like, I'm 18. And he's like, okay, so do you even know how the education system works in Mali? Do you know the curriculum? Honestly, I didn't know much about it. And I was like, yes, of course, I know everything, and I can do it. And he was like, okay, I'm going to give you summer school to run. This summer school, there's a lot of problem. we are trying to help like children in this area to really be motivated to be part of this school, but it haven't been working hard. And I will let you around this summer school for 3 months. If you did well, and if I'm very impressed by the way you did it, I'm going to authorize you a land to build your own school. And that's how I got my authorization, because I ran really well the school, and then he gave me an authorization to build my own school in my area. And I was able to build my school. For my first school was in 2012 for young women in the northern region. But unfortunately, the school was destroyed 1 year later by the rebel groups, because like I don't know if you guys have been following what was happening in northern Mali in 2000, in Mali actually in general from 2012 2013. The jihadists took over the whole like northern Mali for a year, where they were like inserting like the Islamic because they wanted to have an Islamic state. So they have attacked a lot of schools, especially like school where like there was a lot of women. So the school was destroyed. So many of the girls like went to the refugee camp in Burkina Faso and in Mauritania. And that's why I have another like project that came, because I was like, I wanted to continue to support this woman. You know, like it's important to give education to young girls, but it's also very important to make sure that those education are safe. You know, education needs to be safe. You know, you when you go to school, you need to feel safe. You don't go to school and then never come back home. So I started to think a lot. Okay, how can I bring like peace? Then that's when my passion for peace building started to come in. I was like, yes, I'm passionate about building school, I'm passionate about helping, but when there is no peace, none of these things can happen, you know. And that's why I really started to be involved in the peace building area. I started my own NGO about Tiwalte Peace Network. Tiwalte Peace Network is like a network that's a peace network for all like young women from all the region of Mali. Like every summer we do like intensive peace building training for young women, and then we give them small grants to start their own like peace building association in their country. And in that one, in those programs, we do like mediation training, and also how to be safe in a peace building in a conflict zone area as a young woman, how to protect yourself, how to be safe, and also how to contribute in a peace building area. So that's how I started joining, and I think I might stop here. If you guys have any question and stuff before I go further into the conversation.
Fatima, this is brilliant. Thank you so much for giving us this backstory. And I can imagine 18-year-old you walking into the Minister of Education's office and demanding for the chance to build your own school. That is very, very gutsy. And I can see that some of our participants are really resonating very well with that. So thanks for sharing that. I actually want to ask the first question, and I'm going to create space for people to ask their questions as well. You know, you talked about being the president of the Children's Parliament, and you almost kind of glossed over that like it was nothing, you know, but let's actually start from there. How did you become president of the Children's Parliament in Mali? Because that's a huge achievement for a young person as well. What was the experience, and how did you even arrive at that position?
Oh, as I told you, I applied. It's like it's a running. It's like a campaign. So like I ran for it. I was able to convince my community first, because I feel like I was known since before that to be, as I told you, I was very engaged with the orphanage. So I used to go like during my weekend or after school, I would go like to the orphan, and I would like really help with like after school programs and stuff. So I was kind of like known for that a little bit at a very young age. And I was a very good student as well. So what happened is like when the position open, I applied for it, and I did a very like great campaign in my community to get support. So there's a lot of speech that you have to give, why you think that you are a great fit to become the president of Children Parliament, or what is like your objective, what do you want to achieve. And I really have shared my vision, which is to really give access to education to all Malians. And my program was like, I promised to the children that I'm gonna change the mindset of the government on how they view children. And the way I would do that is like I promise that, and I'm gonna create a big campaign all over where I will be traveling with like the member of the children parliament, where we would be meeting with like religious community leaders and traditional leaders, and we'll talk to them, because usually the breaking point is over there, because in those like religious leaders and traditional cultural leaders, they don't even believe in women's education, and they don't see value on even children education, not just young girls, because in their view is like, what's next? You know, you go to school where we need like food at home, go to the farm and then help us eat, you know, at home. So that's what most parents believe in. Or like, if you send young girls to school, what is the point? At the end of the day, she's gonna get married and then abandon everything. So like sharing stories of like bringing like young like mentors that have like advanced in those areas, who have like been successful leaders in Mali, to come to talk to those leaders. And we take videos, short videos of like those meetings. And then when we came back, we met with the Minister of Education and like the stakeholders who are like concerned by the issue. We showed them the videos that we have done, and that was like my campaign point. And then I think I did really well in the role. I did it for a year, and it was a very successful experience. And I think it has shaped me a lot to become like the leader, one of the leaders I am today.
That's just really, really brilliant, Fatima. And again, great that you're talking about just this confidence that you had as a young person. I want to contrast your confidence with the experience of the average young girl in Mali, who, you know, the statistics are very, very terrible to see. Half of girls before the age of 18 are already married off in Mali, you know, one of the worst cases in the world. And I'm wondering, were you afraid at any point that, you know, your life could be at risk? I mean, these rebels eventually burned down your school. You project this period in your life as though you were so confident, you were campaigning, you had the speech, everything was going well, but that's not the same for most girls in Mali. What was going through your mind? Were you ever afraid that you were at risk yourself?
Yes, I have to say, I mean, at some point, I have to say my life was in danger, because I would be receiving like a very like menacing, how do you call it, texts and messages from people that I don't even know. I think for me, I'm a risk taker, you know, like I wouldn't tell people to just go there, go to a conflict area and then put yourself out there in danger without like analyzing, assessing the risk. And I think I'm somebody who likes to take a lot of risk. And for me is what really helped me is the fact that I knew that if I don't do this, who's gonna do it? I think for me, it was like I just took on a lot of responsibility on myself because of like the experience, the personal experience that I lived in that area. And I was like, I cannot be in Bamako, like in living like a great life where a lot of young women in the northern Mali, even in the central Mali, are losing their life every day. There's somebody, we need to create awareness around that, because I mean, being killed by the rebel groups is not the only like human rights violation that happen in this area. Like taking a young girl who's age of 12, giving him to marry to like a man who's around 50, or like selling those young girls for exchange of world power. It's some of the huge human rights violation. Those people are living that. The only thing I can do is to try to take risk and then see how my little bit contribution can change the life of those people. And I think what helped me is like really having like the strong love for what I do, having the confidence that this will bring the change that I want in these people's life, and knowing that it could have been me, because I was there, I experienced that, I have a direct link there, and I know the feeling of like sleeping at night and then hearing all these like weapons around you, or like sleeping at night being afraid to wake up, and then they will tell you, okay, you're gonna be married to this person that you don't even know. So I think for me is like just the personal journey coming with confident. That's what helped me a lot. And it haven't changed because I think I'm going to share a little bit later on my experience with the government as well. You know, it's like all different. Being a woman is a challenge at all different levels. You know, it's either underground or even like working within the government sectors as well.
Great. Let me try and take one question before we transition to that next phase. Kuma Gengen is one of the participants in the Future Africa Fellowship this year. He's from South Sudan, and I think he's currently a refugee in Uganda. Kuma, are you able to unmute your microphone and ask your question?
Thank you so much, Mr. Pez. I thank our sister Fatuma for the nice presentation that she has done. My question is just brief and precise. Fatuma, I just wanted to also know your previous places where you work. You talk of the president of the Parliament for Children in Mali, and as well the CEO for Timbuktu Institute, Center for Peace Studies. In case there's another place that you work also, we wanted also to know for easy understanding of your background. Thank you so much.
All right, Fatima, I think what we should do, I'll repeat his question. I got a sense you probably didn't hear everything clearly. He's actually trying to trace your professional experiences to kind of get a picture of where you have worked. So I think that's a nice segue actually into the next phase of this conversation, right? He wants to figure out from your schooling experience, being this president of the Children's Parliament, African Leadership Academy, what happened next and how did you find yourself in government? So why don't you walk us through that journey?
Okay, thank you so much. I think it's very important. So after ALA, I took a gap year because I applied to a lot of schools in the US to study. Unfortunately, some of the schools I got in didn't have scholarship, didn't give me like money. So I couldn't go to university the next year. So what I did is like, I decided to stay at ALA. I took a gap year. I ran a program, a Francophone orientation program, because when I came to ALA, I suffered a lot, as I mentioned. I couldn't speak English at all. And I feel like at the beginning, there wasn't like an official like curriculum that was designed to support the Francophones when they just come in and start the ALA. So I decided to stay and design improving my English, because having an extra year at ALA, I could take more English classes. But at the same time, I decided to design a program for what is ALA? ALA is the African Leadership Academy. So the African Leadership Academy seek to develop the next generation of African leaders. So they bring students coming from all over Africa for like 2 years intensive program on leadership of African studies and entrepreneurship. So yeah, so I was there. So what I did is I designed that program. And when I did that program to support a Francophone student, I applied for the MasterCard Foundation Scholarship. That's when the MasterCard Foundation just started a program for young Africans who want to study at university. So I was a great fit for that. So I applied. And then I got the scholarship. Then I went to study at Trinity College, where I did a double major in human rights and a minor in gender studies. And I did also international studies. When I finished, I worked a little bit at watch children in armed conflicts in New York. I was there where I was also taking a program at Bar International Affairs program. And I work a little bit after that with Bantonga Foundation, Angelique Kidjo. It's a foundation by Angelique Kidjo to support like five African countries. It was like the program was running in 5 African countries to mentoring like young girls to help them have self-confidence, to help them also access to opportunities outside Africa. So I was helping Bantonga, Angelique Kidjo with that. And I decided I came back to Mali. And before that, I also studied in Vienna University. But I think those are like, since we are talking about more my professional experience. I think I'm gonna go, when I came back to Mali, I started working for like International Republic Institute in Mali, which work on like governments, supporting governments in terms of like integrating youth within the government system. So I was doing that, and while I was also running my own NGO on human peace, the Tiwalte Peace Network. And then while I was doing that, the youngest Minister of Foreign Affairs in Mali was just nominated. Kamisa Kamara, she got nominated to become the youngest first female Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I knew her when I was in Washington, D.C., when I was working for the Angelique Kidjo Foundation. And then she knew my skills. And she was like, Fatima, she called me, she was like, Fatima, I want you to come to my cabinet at the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I want us to run this cabinet together, because I'm the first youngest female Minister of Foreign Affairs in Mali, and I really want to empower more young women who have energy like you to really help me achieve my agenda. And I joined her cabinet, and my objective was really to, when I was at her cabinet, of course, I was the youngest. For the first time, I was 25. For the first time, they actually have a young woman head of mission in the Malian, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I joined that. My mission was, I was in charge of all the partnership with the embassies that are in Mali. And also I was in charge of like a program. So I was able to raise a fund to actually open a first like diplomacy center for youth in Mali. So my objective was to include more young women, young people within the government system. And also for Mali has like signed the peace agreement with the rebel group in 2015. But since 2015 to when I was nominated in 2018 as at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs cabinet, there wasn't no woman taking part of the peace agreements table. So my objective was like to make sure that there will be a woman at the next peace agreements meeting, which happened every month. So I went and I meet with the Norwegian embassy, the Norwegian ambassador. We were discussing, and he also was like, Fatima, I'm very like shocked that since 2015 we still don't have women at the peace agreement meetings at the table. I was like, that's my objective, and I really need your support to that. And he was like, I was like, I'm sure if I approach the stakeholders, they will be like, we don't have money, because it's very expensive to be part of like the committee. You have to pay them, and then we don't have money. I was like, okay, if I go, will you promise me that if I went, you're gonna be financing at least, let's say we're gonna start with 8 women to join the peace agreement table? And he's like, yeah, no problem, just write the letter. I wrote the letter, and then the government gave his agreements, and then he financed. So for the first time last year, we had like 8 women taking part of the peace agreement in Mali at the peace agreement table. So, and I think that was a very successful experience, but there was a lot of challenge, I have to say, because when Kamisa Kamara left, the next minister that came was like, Fatima, you have so much potential, and I know what you have done at the ministry, the kind of change, and I want to keep you at the ministry, but I want to send you at the Center for Strategic Studies, so so that you can really help us make the center known, and then bring more partners to the center. And that's what I did. I went there, but right after there was a coup d'etat. The coup d'etat happens in Mali, and then when the coup d'etat happened, there was no transitional government. The military that did the coup d'etat have created what we call the scientific committee of 20 experts in Mali to work on the chapter of the transitional, the roadmap of the transition, and also to work on like the national consultation terms of references. And I was the only young woman who was selected to join the scientific committee, and there were 20, only 3 women was part of that. But guess what? it was like a very scary. It was a great experience, but it was a very scary experience, because when the committee was creating and we finished all the work, the scientific work, I was picked by the military junta to go at the national TV to present the results of the work, and then also to introduce the national consultation debate that will be studied the next date. So I went on the TV and I did that. And it was like around 8 p.m. I remember. And then right after, like around 9, 10, I went to bed. And I wake up around like 3, 4, and I saw my picture all over social media. Even if you Google my name, I think you might find some. I saw my picture all over social media, people insulting me, like very nasty words. Oh, look at her. She was the brain of the coup d'etat. She used the Center for Strategic Study to actually organize the coup d'etat. Oh, maybe she's sleeping with this military. She's probably the girlfriend of one of them. So it's like, it was very, and I was receiving calls, or from people that I don't even know, that were like really like insulting me and all of that. And I remember I was like, my mom was like, no, you're not going to the consultation. I was like, no, I'm going. I work on this paper and I'm supposed to be monitoring a group. I'm gonna go. No, nobody would do anything to me. And I went there, and I remember my mom would call me every 5 minutes. Are you okay? Are you fine? Because I saw that they're like, some people say that they're gonna go beat you or like attack you, those kind of, it was a very like stressful experience. But what's really shocked me is like, I wasn't the first person among the 20 scientific to go on the TV and talk, but there were like other people within but they were men, they were older, nobody talked. And I think that people like attacked me is not because I said something wrong, it's just because I'm a young woman. I don't have the right to come and like present something at the national TV, especially at this very historical moment of Mali. So like, as a young woman, if you decide to join the public sector, if you decide to become a public figure, you have to know that there will be like, you are sleeping with these men, they will be like judging you more on how you look, because it happened to me. I will go on a meeting, especially at the beginning, it was really hard, working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, being most of the time, the only woman at the table, at the decision-making table, where I will be expressing myself, but I will be really like, after that, I will like, nobody's listening. But the next comment would be like, oh, your dress is very nice. Oh, you look beautiful. Like, people will judge you more on how you look than what you have in your brain, because the first impression that they will have of you, oh, she's beautiful, she's probably just like the girlfriend of somebody, that's why she's here. So there's a lot of like work to do on like changing mindset on like women's role in these public sectors, especially in the African context. And I think we really, the advice I would give to young women is to really have confidence and have a vision, and don't let yourself be like distracted by like what you hear from like people, and also make sure that you have a support system, because your life can be in danger at some point, and at some point as well you might lose confidence at all. But when you have people who knows you for a long time and know who you are and the kind of work you do, really keep you going and help you stay focused. And I did that, and from there I was like, okay, I've been 3 years at the ministry. So I have an experience being an underground in Timbuktu, trying to build school. I was an activist for a long time, and now I have served in the government. I know how policies work. I know how to write policies. I know how to defend them. I know how the decision-making table look like, and I know how the public administration system work. I know the kind of challenges people working there face every day. So, and I was like, now I also work at the think tank, because at the Center of Strategic Study, one of the objectives is to advise the Malian government in terms of like decision, and also in terms of like anticipating events by like doing a lot of research and action at the same time. Now, mainly research, but we propose to the government. We give them advice, and we we guide them. I was like, I had that experience. Then the next will be, how can I combine all this experience and achieve like even a bigger goal on my vision, which is my vision is to bring peace, to bring education in my country. So that's when I decided to join Timbuktu Institute, African Center for Peace Studies, because it's not only a think tank that work on research, but it's a think tank that also do actions. So in a way that we do research on peace building, like what kind of solution we need for Mali and the Sahelian country to have a long-lasting peace. We talk to the population, we do a lot of dialogue, reconciliation. We really have to have like this androgen, which is like an African solution to an African problem, because it's an African think tank. So it's not an international community. It's not like France or the US that are going to be solving our problem. Our problem, it's going to be us. It's going to be us African who will be solving African problem, because we are the one who experiences and we are the one who knows better our problem. So that's why I was very inspired, because it's an African think tank that which working in the African continent. And I was selected to actually become the country director for the African Peace Center. And I'm very excited to see, because I just started working there it's just a week now. And I'm very excited to see what kind of like achievements I'm gonna be doing that by influencing policy, by writing. And I think even last week, I just wrote a policy paper that I published in a national newspaper about my vision as a country director in terms of like peace, how to bring a long-lasting peace in Mali. So I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Fatima, this is once again very, very beautiful. Thanks for walking us through this journey. I can already feel the excitement from all of our participants, and I know there's a lot of questions we want to get into, but I'm going to throw the next one and create space for others to present questions as well. A huge center of your life's work has been about empowering women and creating space for women to have a seat at the table, and you've talked about that. But there was something you kind of glossed over as well, and you talked about it, but I feel I want to give a bit more attention to it, that your arrival in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was actually by another woman giving you a chance, another young woman herself who had arrived in that position saying, Fatima, I recognize you, I know the work that you're doing, I think you'll be a great fit in my cabinet. Why did you decide to accept? I mean, this has been something you've always done, but this was a chance for the tables to be turned. Now it was another woman giving you a leg up. You haven't been doing that for other women. Why did you decide to go into the government? Why did you think it was the right thing for you to do at that time?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, because when she told me to join, I was, because as I told you, I was a human rights activist fighting for women's rights. And I was like, I remember the first thing I told her, I was like, but if I decide to join a government, you know, like in African, especially in Mali, people link governments to corruption, to people that you shouldn't trust, people that are like, they say things that they don't do. So I was like, oh my God, if I decide to do this, maybe I will lose the trust of the people that I have been working for a long time. Maybe they will be like, now she's just gonna be any corrupt woman in the government or any corrupt person. But I actually thought about it. I was like, one of my objective is to support women. She's a young woman joining the government. She wouldn't actually need a support to really do the job, because I saw when she got nominated how they insult her on social media. They took her pictures, they say all those nasty things about her. That was the first thing that really brought my attention, that she would probably need a lot of support. The second thing is, like, I work on the ground for a long time as a human rights activist. I have my association. I know how the civil society work. And I think for me to be more efficient in my activism and my civil society is like to know how actually the government works, because there's a lot of blocking. If you don't have policy that which you don't have the right policy that actually supports the work you do underground, it doesn't even make any sense. Being at the decision-making table will really help me have policy. We have quota for women. Let's bring a quota of 30% of women representation in the government. Let's have quota of like how many women can have seats at the peace agreement. I cannot do that being underground, but I can only do that when I'm at the decision making table. And I think that's what was my motivation for me to be even more successful at my next level in my work, is to have that public administration experience, to know the different challenges, and also to have the network, because being there, I was able to know a lot of people, politicians, that I can today, if I organize a conference about women's participation in politics, those are people that I can easily bring in at the table so they can listen to these women, they can see the kind of work we do. So I think I don't regret that at all, because I was able to support another woman who's just like me, because they trust her, she's young, a lot of people would try to make sure that she fails. Having my support will be a plus. Secondly, as well, just having this experience could only help me be more successful on my next step, because I was scared to lose the confidence, but the kind of work I did there actually made people trust me more, because I was fighting for women's rights, even being at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, by working on policies and by organize conferences and to include more youth at the government and diplomacy work.
That's absolutely fantastic, and I'm glad to hear this, because very often we think about people wanting to go into the public sector, like you say, being afraid about what will happen to their reputation. You know, you don't want to be associated with a government that is perceived as a negative space, but you took this as a chance to do the kind of things you want to see someone else do, right? You want policies to be enacted in the right way, and you went in there to do what was supposed to be done. That's absolutely brilliant. I'd like to take a few questions from our audience, and then I'll refer to some of the questions in the chat as well. Anita is one of our fellows from Kenya. Anita, would you like to unmute your microphone and ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Faith, and thank you, Madam Fatima. You are a very inspirational young woman defying the odds. Thank you. So my question is mostly rotating around the women peace security agenda in Africa, and more so about counterterrorism and violent extremism, especially within the Sahel region. So do you feel that women, especially within Mali, are they playing an active role in the current counterterrorism public policies that the state has implemented to deal with violent extremism and the transnational aspect of terrorism that is experienced within the region of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger? Because it's something that I've really been curious on and I've been researching on. Thank you.
Mr. Faith, can you repeat, because I feel like I lost her at some point.
Sorry.
Sure. I think this is largely, Anita, this is largely about the role of women in Mali and across the Sahel, whether they are being actively represented in counterterrorism efforts within Mali and beyond. Is that correct?
In peace building, right? Or
yes. Counterterrorism and then peace building.
So, I think this is a very great question. I think you know the United Nations Resolution 1325 that really Mali is signed that, and it's an obligation for all the Sahelian countries, and to actually make sure that women are actively participate in the peace building and in the security area. Unfortunately, it's not that much the case. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to include more women in the security area, especially the security have a link to militaries. When people think about security, they only think about military approach, where the security doesn't have only the military approach, because the military, when you add the military approach, you make it sound like it's only reserved for men. But the security area, even in the think tank, we have very few women who are in the area because of the kind of experiences those women actually face when they try to join that, because it's like a mainly dominated area. So a lot of women actually don't feel safe to be part of this area. But there's a lot of work that have been done to increase women. For instance, as I told you, in the CSR, which is the committee working on the peace agreement in the Malian context, now they have had 20 women. We have also in Mali what we call the Commission on Truth and Justice and Restoration. Before we didn't have any women, but with the push of like association in Mali, and with the push of the international community and the peace and security agenda of the African Union, we were able to push the government to add at least from like the total of 25 members, they have 5 women who is part of the Commission on Truth and Justice. There is another committee in Mali, which we call the National Committee for Disarmament and Demobilization and Reintegration, which was created so that we have, so that we kind of like the rebel group. It was an agreement signed with the rebel group so that they can put down the arms, so that they can reintegrate the Malian army, so that they can also work on the development. They didn't have any woman before, but today at least they have 1 woman. In a total of like 38 members, there's only one woman. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but there's a pressure on the international community, and especially also with like the activism organization to make sure that we add more women. There is another operational there's another commission as well, which is called like the Operational Mechanism and Coordination, which is called the MOC. It's mainly military who are members. Out of 700, there's only 1 woman as well in that one. In the authoritarian like mechanism on like peace agreements in the northern area, there's a lot of like work that needs to be done. Not even like in Mali, even in the regional parts, like the G5 Sahel. When you go to the G5 Sahel, you will probably see only 3 to 5 women in the meetings. And in the G5, we talked a lot about counterterrorism, security, peace, but like the participation of women in those area is very, very small. So there's a lot of, that's why we have African Center, we have think tank institutes like Timbuktu Institute, to make sure that we actually do studies and we propose a solution and meetings and do, like, for instance, like last week we organized a conference about religion laicity and what are like the solutions to live together as Malians. We brought like religious leaders, we brought like government actors to really talk about like what kind of role can we give to women, because we talk a lot about religion culture as a barrier to give women space in those like very, very mainly space because of like those mindset that people have already of women. How can we really make sure that we include women into those spaces? So there is a lot of work to be done.
That's amazing. John Ewoto, you are from Uganda, but you're currently in Qatar. Would you like to ask your question as well?
Yeah, hi Fatima. As Mr. Faith has said, my name is John, and I am really a great admirer of you. I really have been inspired by the work that you have been doing. And while I was at ALA, one of the things that we had to do in one of my classes was identify young African leaders who are really defying the odds and going out to challenge the current political paradigms in their countries. And you are one of them, as well as your colleague, Kamisa Kamara. I think my question for you is, you know, you had your education in the US, right? And you spent pretty much most of your undergraduate education there. I want to know, how was it like reintegrating back to the context of Mali, given that you had a Western education? Was that something that was easy for you to do, or are there things that you had to learn, unlearn, and relearn? Because I personally want to be a diplomat and currently at the Georgetown School of Foreign Service, but I want to get into, you know, African diplomacy. So to what extent do you think that, you know, for you, you had to learn and unlearn or relearn a couple of things just to ensure that you thrive as a diplomat in Mali?
Thanks, John. I think that I'm not surprised that you asked me this question. Coming back was very hard in terms of like culture. Just the culture of work is different. Like especially when you have received the American education, like Mali have been colonized by the French. So even like the way the French system work is different from the way the American system work. French system can be very slow, very heavy. Things take time, and I think what I have to really adjust. Have to go slowly, because you cannot just be, especially when you come from like a Western education system, they'll be like, yo, look at her, she thinks that she's smarter, she thinks that she knows better than us, so because she had like a Western education and stuff. So when you come back, you have to be very humble. So don't try to let people know all the time, yeah, I studied in the US, I did that. No, just come, try to be at the same level as everybody, but at the same time try to learn how they work. But I don't tell you to come and work like them, because it can be very frustrated. You can be like, organize a meeting. And one thing that used to frustrate me, you organize a meeting, people will show up 2 hours later and think that it's okay. Like when you like have like this used to, like when you say meetings start at 12, it really start at 12. But here it can like 2 hours later or 1 hour later, people can come late and think that is okay. So those are kind of things that used to frustrate me a lot. And just the way things are very slow flow. You come with a lot of energy, I want to bring change. But those people have been there for a long time. They lost kind of hope in like developing or making the change. But you come with this energy, so you really have to cope with the culture, try to understand how people work and adapt with them. That's how they will start having confidence on you and start to trust you, because you try to understand the way they work and cope with that. But at the same time, include then your discipline, how to improve themselves as well, but in a very humble way. That's the advice I would tell you. So it's very frustrating in that way, but diplomacy is different. So if you want to join the diplomacy, I jumped in. So I didn't go to like the normal procedure, because there is a diplomatic school, for instance, that you have to go to. I don't know in your country how it works. For instance, in Mali, you have to, there's a international relations school that you have to go to for 2 years, and you have to do like an exam. After you do that exam, you go to that school for 2 years, and then after that, you automatically integrate to become like a diplomat. You start working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you start becoming like lower position until you go up. But there is what we call also the political position that you can get. That's what I did, because I went directly to the cabinet of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And from there, I started my journey. I think it's all depend on the country, but there's one thing I have to tell you: we need more young people in the diplomatic sphere. We don't have many women. We don't have many young people, and we barely have women. Like in Mali, it's only 3% of women that do diplomacy, because I mean, when you are a diplomat, just know that you will be traveling a lot. You will be like changing countries every 3 years or every 5 years, depending on the country. For instance, in Mali, you have a rotation of like every 5 years. You come back, stay for 3 years, and then you go out again. A lot of like men don't accept their women to be like, oh, so I will leave my job to be following you in all these countries. So that's why a lot of women don't actually join this public this diplomacy, because it's come with a lot of like commitment of changing countries all the time and also traveling all the time.
Fantastic. I want to take a few questions from the chat, and then I'll come back. We've got 2 hands raised. So Tumi and Janine, we're going to take your questions shortly, but I want to take a few from the chat as well. So Fatima, we've got a question here from Tariku Lemi, who is in Ethiopia. And Tariku is asking, do you have plans to extend your vision and your work to other African countries on peace and security? He understands that you are currently working in Mali, but do you have any visions to do more beyond this, beyond Mali? And there's another question from Molka Ayadi. Molka, I believe, is in Morocco or Tunisia, if I'm not mistaken. Molka, sorry if I messed it up. But Molka, you are really asking here, what does it mean to have a voice? I think that's it's a very, very powerful question from a young woman. What does it mean to have a voice? Fatima, you want to respond to both of those questions together?
Yeah, thank you so much, Faith. The first question is like, if I want to extend my work beyond Mali, I think I'm already doing that in a very indirect way, just by taking part on important conference like this one, where I share my experience, I inspire people, people like you to be more active into their community, to really raise their voice, to participate actively in their community. I do that in a very indirect way. But Tiwalte Peace Network that I started is expanding actually, because the work is gonna be next. They're gonna have an office in Mauritania and also in Burkina Faso, in all the Sahel region. So the new person who's leading the association is working on that. Timbuktu Institute also doesn't only exist in Mali. The center is in Senegal, the center is in Niger, and I think they are opening one very soon in Cote d'Ivoire. So I think in that way, I'm really hoping to extend my work all over the Sahel region first, to take part of more like important meeting around peace building in those areas, and see how we can really work in a very synergy action. For instance, right now, there's a lot of big challenge in Mali on like the Western, because right now we're having a big clash with France. And there's a big crisis in the Western African ECOWAS country with all these coup d'etat in Mali, Guinea, and then what is next? What is the credibility of like the ECOWAS countries? Because the ECOWAS countries are losing their voice. Now we are hearing more France, European having more space in like how the politics should work in our country than our African leaders themselves, because our people are losing the trust on our African leaders. And I don't know if you follow the Malian news right now. We are like, there's a lot of debate on like having like a missionary, Wagner missionary coming from Russia to intervene, and then France was like, if they come, we're gonna leave Mali. So there's a lot of clash that the Prime Minister of Mali went to the United Nations and then give all this big declaration, and France is not happy. So I feel like we need, as African country, to work in a synergy. So if we work individually as an African within our own space, because when Mali collapses, when there is a conflict in Mali, it will affect the neighboring country. The neighboring country is always, it will also collapse. So there's a connection that is there. So we don't have a choice than working as a Pan-African and working in a transnational approach, because our faith, our is like linked together. So we can only be stronger if we work together, if we have like a synergy approach on like solving the peace and security problem in the African country.
Fantastic. Let me take another one from the chat before I recognize our audio questions. This is from Jordan, who is one of our fellows as well in Ethiopia. And Jordan, he said, with all of these experiences that you've had before and after working in the ministry, what do you think the government of Mali can do? I need to get that question correctly. Just bear with me for a second. I want to make sure I get Jordan's question.
I haven't answered his question. One person was asking, what does it mean to have a voice, right?
That is true. Yes, let's take Molka's question. What does it mean for you to have a voice?
I will just answer that very shortly. What does it mean to have a voice is it comes with a responsibility, because I know that the fact that I have like occupied all this important position in Mali, that a lot of people like look up to me. A lot of young women, a lot of young people in Mali and outside Mali look at me as a role model. What does it mean to have a voice is to make sure that when I am at this important meeting, at this important policy making table, is like I'm like really representing the voice of this people whose voice are not heard. So like having a voice means that I have a responsibility to bring the change in the life of the people who doesn't have voice. So it's a lot of work, and I think that it's not given to everybody to have a voice, but while everybody should have a voice. Having a voice doesn't mean that you have to be in a big meeting. Having a voice is just being at home. When something happens in the family, you don't agree with it, but you take the courage to say, I don't agree with this. This is not right. So being able to stand for what you believe and fight for it until the end means having a voice. So you can do it even in a smaller way with your friends. If you don't agree with something, just don't do it because you want to please other people. Do something because you believe this is the right thing and you believe this will bring the change that you want to see. So that means having voice.
Perfect. I've got Jordan's question now. Jordan is from Ethiopia, and she says, with all the positive and negative experiences that you've had before and after working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, what do you think the government can do to better Mali and to close the gender gap? Especially since culture is very, very strong and women are still not, allowed to have all the leadership roles that they have. So what can the government do to help to close that gender gap? And in addition, will you run for presidency, or do you plan to be head of state in Mali at some point?
Okay, I will start with the first question. What can the Malian government should do? First of all, we have laws. First of all, we have to respect the laws that we make, the policies that we make, we have to respect them. Like, for instance, there is a law that the government have to, at every governmental level, like in the government, they should make sure that at least 30 seats is given to women. This policy was passed. The law was passed in 2015. Until today, in 2021, we haven't respected that law. We have never had like 30%, 32%, 30% of women in the government. So first of all, what the government needs to respect the laws that they actually are the one who they draft the law. They have to respect the law. Secondly, it's not the responsibility only of the government. It's the responsibility of the women's association, women's activists that are in Mali, to also make the government accountable when they violate a law, because we fight so much to make sure that we have a space there's a constitution, there's a law that supports us. But the problem is implementing those laws is the most difficult one. Mali have signed all these international treaties about women's rights, about no discrimination, no violence against women. But in terms of like laws, implementing those laws, there's a lot of gap. So my advice for that to really close those gaps is to work in a synergy with the government, working with the civil society to come up with an agreement. If the government doesn't follow this will happen. And I think there is a lot of influence, because in Mali, there's a lot of religious leaders' influence on the government decision. So I think my advice for the government as well is to separate politics and religion. So if you put the two together, most of the religious leaders haven't understand yet the women's rights. For instance, the last minister of women and gender, when she came in, she wanted to pass a law on violence against women, because in Mali it's been a thing. We have seen the most famous artists really she beats her girlfriend. He was almost killing her, and the picture was all over social media. And there's so many cases like that. But when this minister she came, she was like, because there was a lot of pressure among the women's activists and women association organization, wanted a law that's like forbidden men to beat women. That was a big problem. So the biggest imam in Mali met with the president and asked the president to take off this woman minister, she needs to leave power, that they give the government only 1 month to change that minister, that there will never be a law against women violation, because in that law there is that's encouraging women to think that they are better than men, or like that will encourage LGBT. They kind of like brought things that even like is out of the context. But that woman was out. They took her out of the government just because of a religious leader who didn't even understand, who didn't take time to read that pre-law to understand what we meant by a law against women's violation, against violating women, beating women. So there's a lot that the government needs to do, separating religion to politics, work in synergy with the population, and respect the laws. And if I'm gonna be running for a presidency,
yes.
maybe right now it's not in my agenda, but a lot of people have been asking me that I should think about it. I will probably run for it, but right now I'm more focusing on, because I think leadership is, you can be a leader even without being, I mean, we have learned that at African Leadership Academy, you don't have to be a president to be a leader. And I think my agenda right now is to really make sure, because even if I decided to run for a presidency, if there is no peace in Mali, if we don't have ownership of our land, if we don't have national reconciliation, it will be nothing. So I think my focus right now is really how we can bring peace to Mali. Maybe later on I will run for presidency.
You know, you'll have a lot of supporters when you choose to. So we are crossing our fingers for when you make that decision. Let's take a few of the audio questions that we've got. We're going to take all three of them together, and then we'll try to answer at once if we can. So to me, if Efolabi is in Nigeria, to me, do you want to ask your question?
Thank you very much, Future Africa, for putting this together. Fatima, excellent work you're doing in Mali. You're a trailblazer, and we celebrate you. We really do. You mentioned experiencing bouts of harassments. How have you been able to handle harassments, whether verbal, social, even sexual, if that's existent anyway? You know, Africa being a very patriarchal system, we have all of that. So were there safety nets that helped you thrive? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you asked this question. It's a very important question, especially for those women who want to launch themselves in the public sector. It was very hard at the beginning, I have to say. I wouldn't tell you that, yeah, I just take in and I was like, fine, this didn't have any impact on me. At the beginning, it was really hard having those harassment. I was very afraid, but I was also very disgusted by the behavior. And at some point, I remember I was starting to really like close up myself. I was starting to lose a little bit of confidence on myself, on like all these like comments that I would receive about my person. And what helped me is like self-awareness. You know, like one day I just sit down, I was like, I need to do like a self-awareness test, you know, because when you hear a lot of bad things about you, and you hear a lot of comments more about your look, or like people saying that you have slept with this person and this person, it can really affect you. Like, oh, maybe it's very easy to internalize all these like harassments, or like just be hurt by them. You know, it's harassment is very hard. What helped me is like, these people, this is a way to destabilize me, to make me lose focus on my objective. And that's what they do, especially women who are in a man space. They try to do those comments so that you will give up, because you will give up and give them the space. Now they have the whole space. They can do whatever they want. What helped me is like, no, I'm here, I have a vision. My objective is this and this. I'm not gonna let myself be affected by what I heard and what people are saying. Sometimes they say name and shaming. You say that, I will call up. You don't have the right to say that to me. You shouldn't do that. I don't want to give a specific example because I'm like it's a recorded. But what I need to say is just like, do sometimes they call and naming, shame and naming, I don't know how to call it in English. Have confidence, have a vision, have an objective, and stay focused on those things. You know that you are here for this, stay focused and talk to yourself a lot. When you get out in the morning, I do that. I'm like, Fatima, I'm smart. I have potential, I have skills. I'm more than my body. I'm more than my look. These people don't know me. They haven't lived my experience. They haven't know what I went through. They just judge me because they don't know anything about me. I'm gonna make sure that they know me by my work, by the results, by the resilience, and by the fact that I'm not gonna give them the space. I'm gonna speak. When I have the opportunity to speak, I will speak. And then by the time I will impose respect. Respect takes time, especially when people just see your look. It takes time to impose those respects on the people. So that's what helped me a lot, just having self-confidence and talk to people that knows me, my friends, my support system, express myself, helped me a lot. When I experience those harassment, I will call a friend who knows me a lot and share that experience and then have those support systems.
Fabulous. Let's get Janine's question. Janine, do you want to unmute your microphone?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for giving me this platform. Fatima, thank you so much. I feel so much inspired. You're such a good lady. So my first question is, growing up in Mali, did you have any, women leaders that you looked up to, like a woman that inspired you to become the lady that you are today? And the second question is actually closely related to the question that you're from answering right now, dealing with the harassment and, sexual harassment and misjudgment, especially being a woman at a very young age and in a political position. So at times, did you feel like you are fighting the wrong battle? And did it have issues? Did it affect your mental health at one point or another? Thank you.
Thank you. To answer to your first question, yes, when I was at school, at secondary school in Mali, there was this woman that we used to read a lot her book. She was the wife of the former president of Mali, Alpha Omar Konaré. Her name is Adamba Konaré. I don't know if you guys have heard about her. She's a woman. She's the one who made the presidents. She was a powerful woman she would express herself through writing. She was like underground working. So I was like, wow, I want to be like her, especially when I read her books. I was like, she's a great writer. She's like, she speaks her mind, and she's known to be like the one who is the brain of this president of Mali. Growing up, seeing the kind of work she does really inspired me a lot. She's like one of the women leader who really shaped my childhood, especially at the leadership level. To your second question is about if I ever like thought that I was fighting the wrong battles. The only time I started doubting the battle I was fighting was when I was chosen, as I told you, to join the scientific committee. Then when I was like, I wake up in the morning, saw my name all over social media with like insults, harassment calls. I was like, wow. I was like, I gave so much to my country. I mean, I could have decided to stay in the US, have a great job, have a great life, have a great salary, take an apartment, live like a normal life, go to work and come without any like struggle. I could decide to do that because I have an opportunity, but I was like, I love my country. From a young age, I have been fighting, and everybody knows that I have been doing this. How come like people like just get up and I said those nasty things about me? So I started really losing hope on my country. I was like, how can people even like say things like that? But I think that was very short like moment that I have that. But after I really pick up myself, I was like, yes, it's part of the work. It's part of like discouraging me to really stay focused, because I see most of the people who are like insulting me. The worst thing is like most people, the person who started the social media campaign against me was a woman. And that really hurts me even more. I was like, who as women, we should supporting each other, you know, especially we are living in a very patriarchal world. We should be there for each other. Seeing a young woman like being part of this very important historical moment of Mali should be like a proud for a young woman. It shouldn't be like us like having like hurting each other. So I started losing hope as well in that sense. I was like, wow, you know, I'm surprised that it's like other women saying things like that, you know. But you know, at the end of the day, you really have to stay focused on your objective, because I can't judge these people. They haven't maybe lived the same experience that I have lived. They haven't been on my shoes. They don't know me, maybe. So they have the right to say what they think. They have the right to do what they want. But what I could do is like work on myself, to stay focused and to stay mentally stable, because without being mentally health stable, I wouldn't be able to do anything.
Fantastic. Let's get the final two questions that we have here, then we go back in the chat just to close it out. Kabinga and Sarah, I will call you one after the other. So we take both of your questions so Fatima can answer both at the same time. Kabinga, do you want to unmute your microphone?
Okay, thank you very much. This is my first interaction with Future Africa, and I'm very delighted to share my views with the bright minds I can see here. To Fatima, an inspiration to youths around, and it's very good to have these interactive meetings with you. You partially answered my question in your last answer, but I'll ask it anyway. I wanted to say, I come from a Southern African country, Zambia, where the fight to empower women has been strong. We've seen an increase in the number of admissions into tertiary education by women, the participation, the speaker, the vice president. We've seen over the past few years, women getting involved. But I wanted to ask, what mindset should women have and what role should they play to support each other? Because usually you will find that the platform is given to women. For voters in Zambia, actually, there are more female voters in the past two elections than male voters. The platforms have been given to the women, but sometimes it seems the mindset is the one that is not getting there. Now, from your experience and from how you've made it this far, what mindset do you think women should have and what role should they play to support each other together? Thank you.
Thank you. I think the mindset...
Do you mind if we just take Sarah's question as well, just because we are running late on time? Sarah Samuel, do you want to unmute your microphone as well and add your question?
Sure. Anyways, hi, I'm Sarah, a student actually at the African Leadership College in Mauritius. And I'll say I'm really inspired with what you've done so far. And as a female who is really interested in like issues of women empowerment stuff. But my question is, what advice would you give a young person like myself who is trying to kind of like find their mission and purpose in a community where girls are looked down upon?
That's great, and I think that ties into the question we have from Christine in the chat as well, which is, what advice would you give to, to a woman or man who wants to join the diplomatic service and is thinking about how to maintain relevance? So we kind of tossed three questions on you, Fatima. Let's see what you can do with all of those.
Okay, thank you so much. I will start with the first question, talking about what kind of mindset women should have, and why is that so many competition actually among women. The mindset women should have to support each other, because we have a bigger challenge as a woman, because we are living in a very patriarchal system. So the only way we can make it is to really be there for each other, support each other, create this sisterhood among women, and try to, for instance, I was able to have access to education, but the first thing that came to my mind, I was able to have that. How can I make sure that other women who doesn't have that can have that. So that's the mindset we should have, helping each other, supporting each other. But I do understand why as well women compete and women sometimes doesn't support each other. It's institutionalized. For instance, when you give a quota, for instance, in Mali, when you have a 30% of quota for women, what you do is that you create competition, because women, there are very few women who are like out there making their voice. So instead of like working with each other, everybody is trying to get the government attention, because there is a very few seats that is reserved for women. So then we start creating competition among us. There is one aspect of that. We have the other aspect, which is like a more like religious aspect, which is like the polygamy in Mali. Men can take up to 4 wives. So naturally, I had a lot of like challenge, like one of my boss, I remember one of my boss who wife told my boss that because I'm not gonna say where, but I need to be fired. I need to leave, because she thought that I was dating her husband, because she was like, I don't understand why she's working. You stay late at work. Maybe you are with her, things like that. And she was like fighting really hard so that I can be leaving, I can be fired. So you see, like, because in her mind, my husband can take up to 4 wives. Well, maybe she would be the second wife, or she would be the third wife. So even like culturally, religiously, systematically, it's been there. So it's us as a woman to have the awareness that this thing has been there for a long time. This competition is institutionalized, but we shouldn't like internalize it. We shouldn't internalize it. But we would gain more by supporting each other than by having each other's back, because we are stronger when we work together, and it will be for the better of all of us. To go to the second question, what advice I think the question is like, what advice I should give to women who want to be in a public sector and what?
Yes, that was the question for women who want to, be in the public sector, how to maintain relevance.
Yeah, how to maintain relevance is to have a vision and objective. Don't just, especially when you are in a public sector, you will be like, a lot of people will like try to approach you to come work with them, or like to be in their cabinets. Don't just jump into opportunities because it's exciting or because it's a great opportunity. Try to see if it's aligned with your vision. What do you want to achieve in the public sector? What kind of work do you want to do? So that you will stay relevant, and then people will start trusting you because they see constituency on like what you're doing. So just don't take opportunity. Have an objective, have a vision on what you want to achieve. For instance, me, when I was at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, when the minister left, the Minister of Digital Economy, approached me. He wanted me to be in his cabinet. Actually, he wanted me to be the chief of the cabinet, but I refused because it doesn't line with my vision. It doesn't line on what my next step I wanted to do in my career. So I think it's very important to write down your objective, your goals, what you want to do, and also know that it's gonna be very hard. As a young person, it's going to be very hard. As a woman, it's going to be very hard. As a young person, coming in the African context, when you are in a meeting with people older than you, sometimes when you say things like, look at this man, he's so disrespectful. How can you talk like this in front of elders? So it's a very like challenging space, because it's like, especially diplomacy, the people I was working with were like in their 50s, 60s. So they were way older than me. So they think that they automatically know better than you because they are older than you. But what they don't know that is like, we also know innovation. We also have that new, fresh idea. They want to stay in the older way approach of solving problem, older way of like doing things. Technology is problematic for them. So you have to really know that it's there. It's challenging, but you're going to stay focused on your objective. You're going to try to understand them by also respecting them. They're like that. Tonton, tanti, ça va, those kind of things that you have to like learn how to do to survive in those work you're doing. So my advice is like, have objective, stay focused, and and just work hard and be the brain and the face. Because when you are a young woman, you will usually only be the brain. You won't be the face. They will make you work really hard and then take the ownership of it. So you have to, when you do something, take the ownership of the work and express yourself around it. So be the brain and be the face and go out there, express yourself. For the diplomacy work, I think it's very important to, first of all, take courses at the college level on international relations and try to be interested on like how states system work, and also speak more than one language. You cannot be a great diplomat if you only speak English or you only speak French. So you have to be bilingual. You have to be culturally sensitive because you're going to be changing countries. And also you have to understand politics, follow news that happen. Just don't be focused on what happened in Uganda or in South Africa. Try to understand what is happening in Mali, in Senegal, in Afghanistan. So as a great diplomat, you need to know all of that if you want to launch yourself in those adventures, because you need to be, if you have to go serving Mali in Cote d'Ivoire, you have to know a lot about Cote d'Ivoire's culture. You have to know a lot about Mali as well, so that you can represent Mali very well. So just be very active on like knowing what's going on around the world, and then work hard for that.
Fatima, you have been absolutely amazing today. I cannot thank you enough. I've taken lots of notes. Be the brain and be the face. Of course, that is absolutely brilliant. Be bilingual, learn as much as you can, be humble. There's so much to take away from everything you've shared today. And I'm just really inspired for everyone who's had the chance to be in this conversation, to really learn about what your journey has been. And I'm grateful to be able to call you a friend and to be able to invite you to a platform like this. And I'd like to say on behalf of everyone who's been able to join, we are super proud of you. And we look forward to calling you Madam President one day. If you so choose, that is the path you would like to take. We are very inspired by you. So thank you so much for your participation. I'd like to thank everyone as well who's been able to join for this session. We're going to continue doing exactly what we've been doing, which is to expose more people to people like you, to ensure that we are taking as much inspiration from your journey. We're imagining how we can take on similar pathways. What you have done right now has been to just demystify this public sector space, right? You've made it a little bit easier for us to think about this as a space in which we can have impact. And I wish you all the best at the Timbuktu Center. I hope that you make as great an impact there as I'm sure you are capable of.
Thank you so
Fatima,
much.
thanks again. Really grateful for your time today.
And then, Mr. Faith, if anyone wants my contacts, you can share with them either my WhatsApp or my email.
Thank you so much.
It was great talking to you, and thank you for giving me the space to really express myself and inspire more young Africans to bring the change we need, because there's a lot of things going on right now, and we need the young people to be more involved.